Good morning. Hope you're having a great weekend. It is Saturday, June 28th, 1:52 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, local time, here in Ellensburg, Washington. I'm at one of the Pilot Flying J's in Ellensburg, Washington. There's two of them. I'm at the one that's closest to Highway 97, that's next to the Love's truck stop. The other one's a little bit south of here. Just a second here. I'm trying to get my seat belt out of the curtain. Just about to start rolling. Gonna go pick up a load this morning in the Dalles. I don't know how they pronounce it. Dalles, Oregon. I'm not going to be able to record. Well, I could, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to record the whole drive because it's going to be like a 3-hour drive. So, just about to start rolling here. There's one last thing I want to double check. Pretty sure. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I submitted my vehicle inspection report. Now, you are no longer required to do a daily vehicle inspection report. Large companies, the mega carriers are the ones that dictate regulations. Small carriers, owner-operators, medium carriers, they really don't have much say in the matter. But mega carriers don't always get what they want, because mega carriers have been pushing for a 65 mile per hour national truck speed limit for decades, and they haven't gotten that. That's one thing that we can all unite against, luckily. Oh my goodness, there's been some people go way up over the curb. Paid parking, $25 a night. The Econo Lodge has a parking lot here, and they charge $25 a night. That's a ripoff. But there's not a lot of parking around here. All of the truck stops around here have very small parking lots. But anyway, the mega carriers complained that they were having to spend a lot of money on data storage. Sorry, I'm just trying to go around this roundabout and hit as few curbs as possible.
Continue for 3/4 of a mile.
So bear with me while we get on the interstate. This is not a normal, like, get on the interstate place here. We have to drive down this road, and then it's going to loop back around toward the interstate. So yeah, the mega carriers were complaining about the amount of money they were having to pay to store vehicle inspection reports. Daily vehicle inspection reports. If you think about it, like, each inspection report is a file size. Let's say each one is a megabyte. And they have fleet sizes of, like, 10,000 trucks. So they're getting like 10,000 inspection reports per day. That's 10,000 megabytes. So that's like, sorry, I'm just give me a second here to get on the interstate. So just off the top of my head, I think that's 10 gigabytes. And these are just made up numbers. They're probably close to accurate. Maybe they're doing some stuff to get the file sizes smaller than that. But, ooh, I'm doing 65. State speed limit for trucks in Washington, 60. So let's back her down and set the cruise at 60. There we go. We got the cruise set at 60 now. But even if it's half that, even if they're down to 500 kilobytes, that's still 5 gigs of data per day. Just think about that. What's a standard hard drive size right now? Like 2 terabytes. You can get, I don't know what a big hard drive size is these days. Like 10 terabytes. Let's say 10 terabyte hard drive. .8 miles. I'm on I-90 eastbound right now, and 2.8 miles. I'm going to get on to 82 eastbound. And then I'm going to drive that for like 50 miles, and then I'm going to get onto Highway 97 and take Highway 97 down to Interstate 84 in Oregon. So we got about 60 miles total of interstate driving until I get onto the highway, and then I've got like 60 miles, 70 miles of highway driving. But even if it's 5 gigs per day, it's 1,000 gigabytes in a terabyte. So that is 200 days. Is that right? That'd be 200 days per hard drive. No, that's on a, sorry. I'm trying to drive and think about something other than driving at the same time. I usually wait until I'm, settled on the road until I start these videos. So I apologize for the interruptions. So no, we were thinking about a 10 terabyte drive, and that's 200 days would be a single 1 terabyte drive. So a 10 terabyte drive would be 10 times that. So that'd be 2,000 days. There's 365 days in a year. So all right, this is my exit.
In half a mile, use the right 2 lanes to take exit 110 for I-82 East, US 97 South toward Yakima. Use the right 2 lanes to take exit 110. Continue for 50 miles.
So 10 terabytes, that'd be 365 days per year. how many years. Just there's somebody on the shoulder right there. I think that's probably a cop, but we're going to go ahead and move over for him. Nope, that's just a regular car. So that's roughly 14 years worth of data. Wait a second. I forgot what like I completely forgot what I was doing. So it's like so how many gigabytes per year were we thinking of? It was roughly about 365 days in a year, and we were thinking, what, 5 gigs per day? No, it's not 5 gigs per day, is it? Yeah, 5 gigs per day times 365. Oh, was I trying to figure out how many days it was? Like 5 gigs into 10 terabytes? Maybe that's what I was doing. So that would be 200 times 10. That would be 2,000 days. Yeah, that's what I was doing. So it's 2,000 days worth of data. Into a 10 terabyte drive, which comes out to approximately 14 years, like 13 years, somewhere in that area. 13 and a half, almost 14 years worth of data. I think that's just shooting off the top of my head, because it's 350 times 2 is 700. No, it's not 14. It's 6 years. 6 years. So it's 700, and 7 goes into 20 almost 3 times. So that's 3. And then we need to double it. So yeah, it's roughly 6 years worth of data per 10 terabyte hard drive. Now, that's not a big deal if you are, storing your own information. But a lot of these companies don't store their own information. They pay for things like Amazon Web Services to store their data. And that gets really expensive. Those places charge a lot of money. If you're storing your own data, then you just simply need to buy, a storage server that has a bunch of hard drive connections and put a bunch of slow 10 terabyte hard drives in there, and you've got like a lot of storage space. But to pay somebody like Amazon or Google to store that much data for you, it can become quite expensive. And a lot of these companies, these truck companies, they don't want to deal with managing data storage because there's a bunch of regulations around storing data that has personal information. Like any type of data that you store that has like medical records or billing information or anything like that, slow trucks for the next 4 miles. So we're going to be climbing hill for 4 damn miles. We're going up a fairly steep grade right now. I'm empty and I'm doing 58 miles an hour with the cruise set at 60. It's not real steep, but it's pretty steep. I would say this is probably a 4 or 5% grade. But anyway, I've been talking. Oh, we got somebody with their four ways on up that looks like they're moving. So it's just a slow moving truck up the hill. They're not on the shoulder. And the truck in front of me is moving pretty good. I'm not really catching up with them that fast. Based on the light configuration on the trailer, it looks like it might be a tanker. Tankers commonly have just like 3 lights in the top center rear of the trailer, whereas vans will typically have lights at the corners. Actually, seeing it come around the corner, it looks like it might be a rock hauler or a grain hauler. And it looks like they might be hauling doubles. So they got to be empty if they're going up the hill this fast. So yeah, the regulation used to be that you had to fill out a vehicle inspection report every driving day. Just a second here, we're catching up with this slow truck. And what in the hell is going on? Okay, sorry. Sorry, I was getting all confused with the lights. I was like, oh, is there a second truck up there? Because this slow truck looks like it's pulling double tankers. And I thought it was actually 2 trucks blocking 2 lanes. I was like, uh-oh, I got to hit the brakes. We got a snail race going on up the hill. But now you only have to fill out a vehicle inspection report if there is an issue. So if something fails inspection, that's the only time you have to fill out a vehicle inspection report. But I still fill them out every inspection that I do. Well, not every inspection. Every logged inspection. So, like, I log a pre-trip and a post-trip inspection, but I also do inspections pretty much anytime I stop. Like, when I get fuel, I'll do an inspection, but I don't log that inspection. I don't put it on my hours of service log. I don't do a vehicle inspection report for it. But if I log a PTI inspection, pre-trip or post-trip inspection, then I always fill out a vehicle inspection report. So I fill out like 2 vehicle inspection reports a day when I'm driving. At least 2 a day. Sometimes more than that. And Landstar probably throws them in the trash. They probably auto-delete them if there isn't an issue on them. All right, I'm going to pop open my soda. I got an orange Shasta. Out of the variety pack of soda that I get from Sam's Club. Trying to think what order I like them in. Definitely the lime or the Sprite or 7-Up knockoff. That is my least favorite by far. I actually don't like that one. I like all the other 3 flavors. I like them. So what order do I like them in? There's orange, grape, and then tropical punch. And I I can't really say which one I prefer, because sometimes I get in the mood for tropical punch, sometimes I get in the mood for orange, and sometimes I get in the mood for grapes. So which one is my favorite changes from day to day. Like if I'm drinking a whole bunch of orange sodas, I'll get kind of burnt out on them, and I'll be like, oh man, a grape sounds really good. So let's talk about one concern I have on this drive shift. Well, there are several concerns that I have. Number one is that this drive shift is going to be kind of a pain in the butt until I get onto Interstate 84. I'm going to be doing some bi-directional highway driving, and I'm going to be doing a lot of changes between highways and interstates. So it's not just like hopping on the interstate and driving on I-80 the entire drive shift. On this drive shift, I'm going from 90 to 82 to 97 to 84, and I've got a little bit of city driving to get to the shipper. It's not bad. It's right off the interstate. Man, that four-wheeler came right up on my rear end before they hopped out into the left lane. I thought they were going to rear end me. So that's one of the concerns I have on this drive shift. Another concern that I have is fuel, which I'm not too terribly worried about that. I smell rain. I'm not too terribly worried about fuel, because if, I, I'm planning on putting in 50 gallons, which is enough to get a shower credit at Pilot Flying J. Loves and Pilot Flying J, it's 50 gallons for a shower credit. And TA Petro, it's 60 gallons. So I'm going to throw in 50 gallons in near the Dalles. All right, we got a downgrade coming up. Let's see what the sign says. 5% grade, 1 mile. So it's a short 5% grade. All right, this truck in front of me slowed way down, so I'm going to go ahead and slow way down, because I don't really want to pass the truck in front of me. I've been slowly catching up with it, but it's been going really close to the same speed as me. And usually people get a lot more aggressive whenever they have somebody in front of them. Whenever they're leading the pack, they become Sunday strollers, and they drive really casual. But if I were to pass this person, they would most likely start driving really aggressive and just ride my ass, and probably end up passing me, getting back in front of me. And then we would just be leapfrogging back and forth until I got off the interstate on Highway 97. And I just don't want to deal with that drama. So I'm going to try to stay behind them. All right. So we basically hit the bottom, and we're about to start climbing uphill now. Yeah, I plan on throwing in 50 gallons because I just want to get enough fuel to get me to a place that's got cheaper fuel. And I want to throw in enough fuel to get a shower credit. So 50 gallons should be enough to get me all the way to Utah, to Snowville, Utah. From where I started at in Ellensburg, Washington, all the way down to pick up the load in the Dalles, Oregon, all the way to Snowville, Utah, which is right across the border from Idaho. It's, I think if I remember correctly, it's like 720 miles total driving. I have a quarter of a tank. I actually have a little over a quarter of a tank of fuel right now. It's not quite 3/8 of a tank. It's not even close to 3/8 of a tank. It's just barely over a quarter of a tank. But 50 gallons is roughly a quarter of a tank. And if I'm getting 7 miles per gallon, which I should be able to get 7 miles per gallon with a really light load or running empty, 7 miles per gallon should be fairly easy. I could probably get better than 7 miles per gallon, but I'm really conservative with my estimates. But at 7 miles per gallon, with roughly 100 gallons, that should allow me to drive 700 miles. And I have probably an extra 15 gallons above that. So I have like 100. After I put 50 gallons in, I should have about 115 gallons of fuel. This second here, there's somebody on the shoulder. They got their triangles out. They actually did a decent job on the triangles. They're not out correctly, but that's a lot better than I see most people putting out triangles. So, for those of you who've taken the CDL test recently, you probably remember how you put your triangles out. But for those super truckers out there that haven't taken a CDL test in 20 years, where are you supposed to put the triangles if you're parked on the shoulder? If you're parked on the shoulder of an interstate like this, we're not going to overcomplicate this like a bi-directional road, parked on a hill, and all the rest of that crap. We're going to be really simple, straight road, interstate. A divided road, nice straight road, no curves. Where are you supposed to put your triangles? Number one, all of them go to the rear. You don't put any of them in front of the truck. And what distances are they supposed to be placed at? 10, 100, and 200. So the very first triangle should be 10 feet behind your trailer. The second triangle should be 100 feet behind your trailer. And the third triangle should be 200 feet behind your trailer. That last truck had them evenly spaced at like 30 feet, 60 feet, 90 feet. And how long can you be parked before you have to put your triangles out? 10 minutes. If you're parked in the emergency lane, which is what the shoulder is an emergency lane, for more than 10 minutes, you have to put triangles out. And if you're going to be taking your CDL test, you might get asked that question on the written test, and they might also test you on that on the driving test. They tested me on that on the driving test. They told me to pull over on the shoulder during my driving test, and before the instructor could even ask, or not the instructor, but the examiner, before the examiner could even say anything, I said, if we're going to be parked here for more than 10 minutes, then I'm going to put my triangles out. And he said, okay, that's what I was about to ask you. He said, where would you put the triangles? And I told him 10, 100, and 200 behind the trailer. And he's like, okay, good. All right, go ahead and go. My examiner was pretty cool. Like whenever I was doing my alley dock, the CDL school that I went to, all right, I'm trying to figure out how to say this without ranting and raving for an hour and a half about how ridiculous CDL schools are. All right, we got a 5% downgrade for the next 3 miles. We're just going up and downhill. Ever since we've been on I-90, basically ever since we started driving, we've just been going up and downhill. This does not feel like a 5% downgrade. This feels like flat land. All right, it is definitely not flat land because I'm coasting right now and I'm doing 62 miles an hour with engine brake at level 1. So we're going to turn the engine brake up to level 2. Oh yeah, we're about to be doing some downhill. You see all the city lights in front of us? I don't know what town this is. There's a whole bunch of lights and we're crawling down this hill down into town. With just level 2 engine brakes on, I have 3 levels of engine brakes. It slowed me down to 55. And it looks like it's holding. Nah, it's still slowing me down. Now we're doing 54. We're just going to keep it there, see how much it slows me down. I'm cool with going 54 down this hill. Now that we're doing 53. And we're not catching up with the truck in front of me. I'm not wanting to pass them. But anyway, the CDL schools are really big about being formulaic. If they can figure out a way to where they can tell you, okay, to do this maneuver, you line up here, you turn the wheel all the way to the right, you pull forward 10 feet, you turn the wheel all the way to the left, you do this. If they can be very formulaic with telling somebody how to do something, teaching them how to perform a maneuver, they're not teaching you how to back up in CDL school. They're not teaching you how to drive a truck. They're teaching you how to perform the maneuvers to pass the CDL test. That's the reason you really need to go through on-the-job training after you get your CDL, because CDL schools, now there may be some exceptions to the rule. There may be some good CDL schools out there that actually teach you how to drive these trucks. But I've gone through CDL school twice, 20 years apart, and both of them did the exact same thing. They just taught me how to perform the maneuvers on the test. They didn't teach me how to drive the truck. So the maneuver that they taught us for the 90 alley back, the 90-degree alley back, was to do a flat back. Those ridiculous backing, styles where people will just line up just flat, and then they'll do their entire setup from a flat position. They won't start at an angle toward the spot that they're backing into. They won't try to get lined up for the spot. They'll just start completely flat. And then they'll do their entire setup and everything while backing up. I think that is an absolutely stupid way to back a truck up. But the CDL school loves that because they can teach people to do that in a formulaic way. They can say, okay, and pull all the way up to here and line up at this spot. Then you turn your wheel all the way to the left. You back up 10 feet. All that stupid crap. And they told us that whenever we take the CDL test, if we do not do the maneuvers the way that they train us to do them, they will not let us retest in their equipment if we fail. Whereas part of our contract, I believe we were given 3 retests. We were allowed to use their equipment for, I think, 3 retests for free as part of our, contract. We paid like $6,000 to go to the CDL school. It was really expensive. And it included 3 retests. But they said that they wouldn't let us retest if we didn't. So whenever oh my goodness, my fuel gauge is now at a quarter of a tank. That like extra fuel that I had above the quarter of a tank disappeared going through those mountains right there. So now I'm starting to question whether or not I can make it all the way to Snowville with just another 50 gallons. Maybe I should throw in 60 gallons at this fuel stop just to play it safe. No, I don't think I'm going to do that. It's a big difference in fuel. Fuel here is $3.54 a gallon, and fuel in Snowville is $2.64 a gallon. 90 cents a gallon price difference. Is that right? Yeah, I think that's right. 90 cents a gallon cheaper. So anyway, when I was doing my CDL test, I got the alley dock. And the alley dock is considered to be one of the most difficult maneuvers that you can draw on the skills portion of the test. I think parallel parking is the most difficult one. But parallel parking is very, very, very formulaic. It's probably the easiest one to do if you're just following the formula that the CDL school tells you how to do. I forget what all maneuvers there are in the pool that you can possibly get. I think there's 2 different parallel parks that you can get. You can get parallel parking from either side. And then there's the alley dock. And what was I think there was another one that you could possibly get. Or maybe it was just those 3 and you only had to do one of them. I think that's it. I think that there was those 3 that you could potentially get, but you only had to do one of them. I can't remember. But anyway, I did that stupid flatback, and they had, spots at the CDL, at the DOT station where we were doing the CDL exams. They had spots where they told us pull up to that spot or pull up to the second pole. And so I pulled up to like the second pole on the building. And I was like, this seems way too short. Did they mean which direction are they counting from on the second pole? Like I assumed that they were counting the number of poles starting from the direction that I was coming from, but they were counting the poles from the opposite direction, from the other side of the building, not the side of the building that I was coming from. So I ended up stopping at one pole too short. So I was way short on the alley dock. I ended up having to do a couple of pull-ups to reposition, and I gave up on their stupid flat back and just did it how I normally do it. And I got it in there. And once I got it in there, I was like, did I get it in there under the 10 points or whatever it was? He was like, yeah. I was like, well, how many points did I take? He was like, I don't know. I wasn't counting. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I was like, he's like, why do you guys do that ridiculous flat back thing? Why do you guys do that ridiculous maneuver where this truck in front of me just slowed way down. I caught up with them real quick. I've only got 17 miles until I get off the interstate. I'm not really wanting to pass this person. Are they exiting soon? Because they just, have dropped a lot of speed. And it looks like I still can't tell. It does look like it's double tankers. It's not a rock hauler. This is the one that I thought was tankers, and then I thought it looked like a rock hauler or a grain hauler. But now that I'm really close to it, I'm 99% sure it's tankers. I can see the outline of the tankers. It's somebody hauling double tankers. I think maybe either they're taking an exit really soon, and that's the reason they slowed down, or they misjudged the hills, and they thought they were going downhill, and they were on flat land, and they slowed down to go downhill, and I don't know. They just slowed down out of the blue for what reason, I don't know. And I slowed down to 55, and I still managed to get this close to them. I hope they're not hopping on 97 with me. What I should probably do is go ahead and pass them while I'm still quite a ways away from my exit. That way, if they are going on 97 with me, I'm not going to be stuck behind them on that bidirectional road the entire drive. Because, I would be really pissed off if I avoided passing them this whole time, and then they got off and went on that bidirectional with me, and I was stuck behind them all the way to Interstate 84. So, yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and pass them. Slowly creeping up on them right now. But, yeah, the examiner on my CDL test just basically realized that I knew the test really well. Oh, he just slowed way down again. All right, we're going to go ahead and speed up and get around him. Are they taking this exit? They don't have any signal on. They're not slowing down anymore. It's a local in a day cab. I don't know why they're not able to maintain speed. Maybe they don't have a cruise control. Or maybe they have one of those cruise controls that's configured to be as fuel efficient as possible. And it will let the truck drop a lot of speed. I remember when I was at USA Truck, they had the trucks configured for maximum fuel efficiency. so they had no acceleration at all. And on the cruise control, it would let the truck drop by like 3 or 4 miles per hour below what you had the cruise set at before the throttle would engage if you were like coasting. And because of that, I would just ride I had the cruise control on, but I would just ride with my foot on the pedal, with a pedal all the way to the floor the whole time I was driving, just so that I could maintain speed. Otherwise, it would just crush my mile per hour average with the way it was configured to be so fuel efficient on the cruise control. Gear Jammer Travel Plaza. Well, ain't nobody jamming gears these days. Manual transmissions are a thing of the past. I was watching a YouTube short a couple hours ago that was talking about a really rare truck. It was a mechanic talking about a really rare pickup truck that came into their shop, and it was like a 2019 year model, I think a Ford pickup that was a manual. And he was like, they just don't make these anymore. You hardly ever see manuals. And I am not one of those people that's like, automatics suck. I wish I still had my manual. No, I am not one of those people. I was really, really good at shifting gears in a manual. And I am one of those few people out there that actually used the clutch. I double clutched on every shift. I never floated gears. And I was really, really good at driving a manual. Ollie, just a second here. I'm watching that tanker, because that was 97 South. That was the exit for 97 South there. I'm checking to see if that tanker behind me took that exit, and they did not take that exit. So basically 97 South is the highway that I'm going to get onto, and it runs parallel to Interstate 82 for like 10 miles, and then it turns away. And instead of getting on 97 right there and driving 10 miles alongside the interstate, I'm just going to stay on the interstate and get onto Highway 97 10 miles down the road. Because if I get onto Highway 97 back there, then I would have to drive through a couple of small towns with stoplights. But yeah, I love automatics. And not all automatics are the same. This is something that a lot of truck drivers do not know because they haven't driven a bunch of different automatics. Well, before we start talking about automatics, let me finish what I was saying about the medical not the medical examiner, the CDL examiner. Sorry, I was watching that box truck pass me. So yeah, whenever I was going through like the vehicle inspection and stuff like that, the CDL examiner realized that I knew this really well. And oh man, there's a pickup right there on the shoulder in that turn. No lights, no triangles, no nothing. I didn't see it till the last second, and that thing was right on the fog line. But the examiner like told me while I was going through the inspection, he's like, you do not need to go into this much detail on the inspection. He actually got frustrated at how much detail I was going into on the vehicle inspection. And he just basically stopped listening to me. He just went through and marked everything off and stopped like asking questions and stopped listening to me and stuff like that while I did the inspection. And throughout the rest of those tests, he basically already had made the decision he was going to pass me on everything. So whenever I was doing like my backing maneuvers and stuff like that, he wasn't even watching how many pull-ups I was doing or anything like that. He wasn't like marking points off or anything. And then, the drive test was really easy with him and everything. So like, yeah, it was just, I coasted through the CDL test. So now let's move on to talk about the automatic. So this is something that a lot of people do not realize about these trucks. There's mainly two different types of automatic transmissions in these trucks. There are paired and unpaired. What in the world does that mean? Well, if you have like a PACCAR transmission with a Cummins engine, they're not paired. Now that may have changed. I don't keep up with all of the latest changes in the industry, so maybe there's been some advancements. But the only paired automatics that I know of in the industry are made by Volvo with iShift and Freightliner with their the Detroit engines and the Detroit transmission. So if you order, now again, this may be different now because I haven't been keeping up with everything that's changed. But as far as I know, if nothing's changed, it's still like this. If you order a truck from Volvo and you order it with a Cummins engine, and then it's going to be an unpaired transmission. But if you order it with a Volvo engine and a Volvo transmission, then they will be paired. And they will communicate, the engine and the transmission will communicate together. And that changes the way that they shift. And likewise with a Freightliner, Freightliner owns Detroit. So Detroit engines and Detroit transmissions paired together, they'll communicate back and forth. Their computers share information. So how does that change how the automatic transmission works? Well, these automatic transmissions still shift like they're manuals. They shift just like a normal manual transmission. They're just doing the mechanical shifting for us. Rather than us doing the shifting, the transmission is doing the shifting. So they still have to like rev up the engine to do a downshift and stuff like that. Well, with the paired transmissions, they are much better at choosing which gear to shift to. Like on my truck, I have a Volvo engine with a Volvo transmission with iShift. If I'm accelerating really fast, it will skip gears. Like it'll jump from like 4th gear to 6th gear. Like it'll skip gears. And it does not miss gears. It takes over throttle control while I'm shifting. Like I can sit there and push the throttle all the way to the floor, but while it's shifting, it will take control of the throttle so that it does perfect shifts. That's part of the communication between the transmission and the engine, is that when the transmission wants to shift, it'll tell the engine it wants to shift, and it'll have the engine take over throttle control so that it'll do a perfect shift. If you have an unpaired engine and transmission, or an unpaired transmission, it doesn't have that communication. So if you just have, like my Kenworth that I had at USA Truck had a PACCAR transmission, and I think it was a Cummins engine. I'm pretty sure it was a Cummins. And if it was trying to shift and you were pushing the throttle down too hard or too far and you were over revving, it would grind gears. It wouldn't be able to get into a gear. It would get lost in gears. And you would have to slow way down and just let it coast until it could find a gear. And it would not skip gears. Whenever you were accelerating, it went one gear after the other. It would not skip gears. It was really slow accelerating because it wouldn't skip those lower gears. It would start out in like second gear, and it would go through every single gear. I have never had this truck miss a gear or grind a gear. But the unpaired transmission that I had at USA Truck with my Kenworth, that thing would miss gears and grind gears all the time. Another problem I had with that truck is that it lunged at low speeds. So if you were trying to back up really slow to the dock, or you were like really close to a barrier, the side of the building or something in front of you, it was really dangerous because it would lunge. If you started to let off the brakes, it would be like applying throttle. Like normally, if you're wanting to creep at low speeds, you're not going to be giving any throttle. You're just going to be letting it idle. You're just going to let the truck idle and move off, just strictly off the idle. But that's not the way that transmission was configured. It would apply throttle whenever you were trying to move forward or back. So that would cause it to lunge at low speeds. So you'd have to like be slamming on the brakes. Like you'd let off the brake a little bit and it would lunge forward. You'd have to slam on the brakes to keep from hitting something. Man, it was really, really dangerous to drive that Kenworth at USA Truck, to creep around at low speeds. And those Kenworths had such a terrible turning radius. Like they were really, really dangerous to maneuver in tight spaces because of it lunging and because of it having such a poor turning radius. All right, we got 1.2 miles until the exit. Then we're going to have to drive through some small town to get onto Highway 97. But this truck drives almost like a car with its automatic transmission. That's the reason I went with Volvo. I really like Freightliner. I've never driven a Peterbilt. I have driven Kenworth, and I hate Kenworth. I know that there are people out there that love Kenworth. Maybe I've just driven really bad Kenworths, but I will never own a Kenworth after the ones that I've driven. I've driven like 3 Kenworths, 2 or 3. All right. Coming up on the exit here.
Take exit 50, then keep right.
30 mile per hour exit. There's nobody behind me for about a mile. I think it's that tanker hauling doubles. It's about a mile back. I hope they're not exiting here with me. All right, we got a stop light, or stop sign, not light. So the only brands of truck that I've driven,
Keep right.
Volvo. The trucks I've driven the most are Volvo and Freightliner. Yep, that tanker
Merge onto Washington
exited here with me, so
then you will arrive at your destination.
I'm glad I passed them. Otherwise, I would have been stuck behind them all the way to
You have arrived.
Oregon.
Continue for 61 miles.
This is a narrow bridge. Rough road. Recommended speed 35 miles per hour. This is a really narrow road. I didn't notice any no truck signs. I'm hoping there aren't any truck restrictions on this. This is a pretty narrow. Now it's widening out. We actually have a shoulder now. I do not see that tanker behind me. So they might have gone the other direction, or maybe they just pulled off onto the shoulder of the exit to take a 30-minute break or something, or to pee. But I'm not seeing them back there behind me. But yeah, Volvos are I've driven the most. Freightliner I've probably driven the second most. Sterling, which is the brand of truck that XPO Logistics had back when I drove for them whenever they were Conway Western Express. I've never worked for XPO. I worked for Conway Western Express, and Conway was bought out or merged with or something. They became XPO Logistics. And Sterling's, those are some of the worst trucks I've ever driven. Absolutely cheap junk. Even the brand new Sterlings we had were just absolute junk. Every time we would get a rental, I would always ask to drive the rental. There was a rental Freightliner that we would get, and nobody wanted to drive that Freightliner because it was, I think, a 10-speed, and the Sterlings were 7 speeds, and everybody preferred those 7 speeds without a splitter rather than drive the 10-speed that had a splitter. This second here, speed limit just dropped from 35 down to 25. We're doing 28. We're slowing down. We're getting below 25. All right, there's another truck on this road. I don't feel so bad. Whenever I'm driving on a sketchy road and I'm not seeing any no truck signs, I'm like, man, is there a no truck sign that I missed? It's always nice to see a truck. Like, was I not supposed to take this little cut across to 97? Those are some pretty smooth railroad tracks. All right. Well, this looks like a pretty sharp turn. Let's slow it down. There's a lot of pedestrians. For what time is it? 3 o'clock in the morning? There were just like 2 kids that I passed walking across the railroad tracks. And there's somebody on a bike. I couldn't tell how old they were. 3 o'clock in the morning. Out here in the middle of nowhere, some small town in the state of Washington. With a bunch of pedestrian traffic. So Volvo, Freightliner, Sterling. Kenworth is probably next on the list of the most I've driven. Oh, Fred Meyer is pulled over. It looks like they're probably... What are they pulled over here for? They're just taking their 30. I thought they might have been eating at that restaurant, but that restaurant's closed. Oh, wow, that stinks. That car almost pulled out in front of me. It smells like rotten eggs. Like open sewer or something. All right. Got a red light. Just about to get the green. And there we go. So, yeah, the Kenworth was better than the Sterling. The next brand of truck that I've driven, International. I have very little driving experience in an International. I've driven an International twice with USA Truck. Once was during my driving test, which that really sucks to take your driving test in a truck that you've never driven before, especially when it's a completely different manufacturer, because they drive very different. They're turning, like Internationals have amazing turning radius. They're really, really good. They turn on a dime. But the automatic transmission in that thing was really weird. It had a lot of issues getting in gear. But that's what I took my driving test in. And oh my goodness, that driving test was really, really hard. I was the last person that did a driving test at the Van Buren, Arkansas terminal at USA Truck because they shut the terminal down. And I have a YouTube video on this where I went into detail about it. All right, speed limit's up to 60. But they shut down the Van Buren, Arkansas terminal the day that I was there. The day that I passed training and got my own truck. And I, took my my test, my final driving test, because you do your required training time with, going out over the road with a trainer for a month or so. And then they bring you back to Van Buren, Arkansas. You stay the night in a hotel. And then the next day, a cab takes you over to the terminal and you do your driving test and you do some paperwork. And then you get assigned your truck and you meet your, you meet the driving. Just a second here. This asshole has their brights on. This second here. I'm having to squint my eyes and just look straight down at the road in front of me. All right, they just now dimmed their fucking lights. Sorry for the language, but that is so dangerous to be just high beaming somebody on a bi-directional road like that. Anyway, so the day that I got there, there was hardly anybody there. And there was so much drama all day long because basically USA Truck had lied to everybody. They told all the people working there, like we knew that they were shutting that terminal down months in advance. Like, well, not a long time. They gave us, I think, somewhere around 30 days notice that they were going to be shutting that terminal down. 30 to 60 days notice. It wasn't a lot of notice. Like, the notice happened while I was in training. It was I was only in training for like a month and a half. So the notice that they were going to shut that terminal down came while I was in training. So they didn't get very much notice, but they told all the people working there that they would relocate them to other terminals. And they also said that it was going to take a long time to shut the terminal down, so that they would stay on board while we're going by a way station. That sign just said way station closed. They were going to keep those people on board at that terminal for a few months while they transitioned them. So they were still all those people were still expecting to have jobs, and they weren't going to have to move to another area for a few months. And then out of nowhere, they just told everybody that they were like laid off or fired or whatever. So everybody found out. The day that I got there is when everybody found out that USA Truck had lied to them and that they were firing all of them that day. Like, there were the people there didn't even know whether or not they were getting fired. Like, they just started calling people in first thing in the morning at like 8 a.m. as they were getting there, and they were just telling people, you're fired. So people were just finding out, and there were people that still weren't sure if they were getting fired that day. They hadn't been told yet whether or not they were getting fired. Like, the guy that did my road test didn't know if he was getting fired that day or not. He thought that maybe they were waiting until after he did my road test. He said that I'm probably going to get called in and get fired after I do your road test. But a lot of the people, they told them that they could finish out that day. So like the mechanics, they fired like all of them first thing in the morning. But they were still there all, at the end of the day. Probably because they had some of their own tools there or something. They were having to pack up to leave. I don't know. But it was really awkward. Because I was like, basically all the people I was working with to transition from training to having my own truck, almost everyone I was working with had already been fired. This was their last day. And they didn't care. They were like, you know what? I really, they wanted to help me out of just like, because I wasn't the one that fired them. But at the same time, they were like, I've been fired. I just need to go home. I shouldn't be doing more work for this company that just fired me. So yeah, it was very poorly handled by USA Truck. But I was the last person to take a road test at the Van Buren, Arkansas terminal at USA Truck before they shut it down. And the road test that they had us do there was insane. They took us on a truck route. So there's a bunch of people in the Van Buren, Fort Smith, Arkansas area that don't want trucks driving by their houses. So they had their neighborhood flagged as like a historic district. So because of that, they were able to get trucks banned from driving down the roads near their houses. So it created this truck route where you have to drive around their community on some really sketchy residential roads. Roads that are trucks should not be on. I'm talking about roads where there's no shoulder and the edge of the road is just a drop off into a ditch. And these are narrow roads, really narrow roads. And that was like they had us driving down that truck route on the road test. This is the most difficult road test I've ever done. And they wanted to test our ability to follow a truck route. So he's like, just follow the truck route. I just followed the truck route for like 15 or 20 minutes driving on these really sketchy residential roads, bypassing this historic district in Fort Smith. And it was a really long road test too. The backing portion of it wasn't that bad. He just had me pull into some drop yard that they had and told me to back into a spot. It was really muddy and it was raining. And I told him, I was like, do you mind? Do you care how many pull-ups I do? Or do you care like how much room I use or anything like that? He was like, no. And I said, all right, then I'm going to do a couple of pull-ups and I'm going to use a lot of room. And I'm not, so that I don't have to get out and look, because I don't want to get out and tromp through this mud. And he was like, all right, as long as you get in the spot without hitting anything. So that's what I did. But oh my goodness, yeah, it was a really hard road test. Like a lot of the turns that I had to make, I had to use the entire road, like both lanes, and I had to wait for traffic. I had to like wave traffic through because I had to use both lanes in the lane that I was coming from and both lanes of the lane I was going into, and still doing all of that. One of my trailer tires was still like hanging off the side of the road going through that turn. Like that's how narrow these streets were. It was really, really scary. There's no way I'd want to be driving a truck on those roads. Oh, we got a little bit of fog. I don't use my high beams very much. And when I do, I don't usually leave them on. Especially when I'm cresting a hill like I am right now. Your high beams are not helping you see further. But if there's somebody coming up over that hill that you can't see, you're going to blind the hell out of them as they top that hill. So if I do happen to be using my high beams, I try to turn them off if I see another vehicle, or if I'm cresting a hill or coming around a turn or something like that where there might potentially be a vehicle that pops out of nowhere. And if I can see somebody's lights in front of me, they can see my high beams. So I don't care if it's tail lights or headlights. If I see tail lights or headlights in front of me, I don't turn on my high beams. But I do have my high beams on right now. I'm not sure if you can tell when I'm turning my high beams on and off. And we're about to go through a turn, so I'm going to turn them off right now. Because they're not really going to help me through a turn. Well, at least that person turned their high beams off once they saw me. So they didn't high beam me for very long. But that's the reason I turn them off going through a turn, is somebody can pop out like that. And your high beams are not giving you any additional visibility through a turn because they're shining straight ahead and you're going to the left or to the right. So yeah, the international, I took it, I did it on that driving test. And the other time that I drove an international at USA Truck was somebody somebody just quit under a load. They dropped the truck and trailer off at the USA terminal, and they tried to give me that other person's load, and they had no idea what was going on. This truck and trailer was dropped off at the terminal, but they had no idea what was going on with the truck and trailer. They had no idea what was going on with the load. So they just assigned the load to me and told me to figure it out. So I had to go find the truck and trailer. They didn't even tell me that like somebody had abandoned their truck and their load and quit. They just like assigned me a load like it was normal. And they didn't give me any heads up. So I went looking for this trailer it was at the Atlanta terminal. I think it was Forest Park, Georgia. It's basically Atlanta, Georgia, the USA Truck terminal in Atlanta. And I found the trailer, and it had a truck attached to it. And I knocked on the door, and nobody answered. So I called dispatch, and I was like, "What's going on? The trailer has a truck attached to it. Nobody's answering the door. I can see through the window, and it doesn't look like there's anybody in there. So what's going on? Did this driver like drop their truck off and go home for the weekend? Can you call them and have them come back out here and disconnect?" And that's when I found out that the driver basically abandoned the load and quit the company. And so they told me to see if it was unlocked, and it was, and it had the keys in it. And they told me just disconnect that truck from the trailer, park it somewhere at the terminal, move the truck somewhere, in another parking spot at the terminal, and take the load. So I disconnected the truck from the trailer and parked it in another spot. And I spent like an hour looking for the paperwork for the load, and I could not find the paperwork. So I called dispatch back again. I was like, yeah, I have no idea what this person did with the paperwork. I can't find it in the truck anywhere. So, I don't know what they did with the paperwork. Maybe they threw it away on purpose, or maybe they threw it away on accident, or maybe they accidentally packed it up in their stuff whenever they were, getting out of the truck. Or maybe they, put it on the trailer somewhere and the wind got it and blew it off. But I looked all around the trailer. I looked all around the outside of the trailer and the tractor. I looked in the document box on the trailer. I looked all inside the truck. I could not find the paperwork for the load. And the trailer was sealed. I was like, I'll break the seal if you guys want me to check and see if the paperwork's in there, but I highly doubt that the paperwork would be in there, because he would have had to have broken and resealed the trailer in order for him to put the bill of lading into the back of the trailer. And they're like, no, don't break the seal. And then they wanted me to just set on the load. This was like Friday night, and the terminal was closed through the weekend. There was not going to be anybody at the terminal through the weekend. And they wanted me to just set on the load until Monday, and then go, deal with the terminal people and work with them to get the paperwork. Have them contact the customer and get the customer to fax over or email the paperwork and have them print it out. And I was like, nah, you know what? I don't really want to deal with all that crap. Why don't you just give me another load, and then you can have the terminal people here figure out the paperwork issue. And then once they get the paperwork issue figured out, then you guys can assign it to another driver. because this load, not only do you need to find the paperwork for the load, but because I can't pick up the load now, I'm not going to be able to deliver it on time, so the delivery is going to have to be rescheduled. So there's just a tremendous amount of drama with this load, and I don't want to be stuck under this load at the terminal for 3 or 4 days not being able to drive. Now, I was paid by the mile. That was back when I was a company driver. I was like, I don't want to sit under this load at the terminal for like 4 or 5 days while you guys are figuring this stuff out. And they were like, okay, we'll get you another load. And they took the load off of me and got me another load. So I only drove that international for, I don't know, 300 feet or so at the terminal, moving it from one parking spot to another. And in just that short distance that I drove it, I had a huge problem with it. Like, this was a really janky international. Like, the international that I drove on my test, yeah, it felt like I was driving a really... That is the reason that I dim my headlights before I go into a turn, and that person did not. They just drove right through that turn with their high beams on. But the USA Truck Terminal in Forest Park, Atlanta, Georgia, it has a big hump in it. Like, it's mixed elevation. So I had to go up this pretty steep little hump to get from one side of the parking lot to the other in that international. And that international could not go up that little hump. Like, I was starting to go up the hump, and the tires just were spinning. It could not make it up over that hump. So what I had to do is I had to back down that little hump and get a run at it. I had to get up to speed, get up to like 15, 20 miles an hour to get a run at that hump so that I could make it over that hump. I was just creeping over it at like 5 miles an hour, and it stalled out on me, and the tires just started spinning. And it was a manual transmission. I remember that. And like the transmission, I can't remember the details. There was something really weird about the transmission. And it had like no power at all. Like, it was like it just had no power. Like, you press the throttle down, and most trucks, when they're bobtail and you're in low gear at low speed, they're really jerky. They have so much torque that they're just really jerky. And this truck was not like that. Like, you had to press the throttle almost all the way to the floor to get it to do anything. Like, it had no power at all. I suspect that truck is part of the reason the person quit. Because that thing was an absolute piece of crap. I don't know what was wrong with it, but it wasn't working right. And so what is that? That's Volvo, Freightliner, Sterling, Kenworth, International. I think those are the only brands of trucks that I've driven. And if I had to rank them, then I would rank oh my goodness, it's really hard between Volvo and Freightliner, which one I would rank number one. It's really difficult because there are things that I really hate about Volvo. But there are things that are really awesome about Volvo. And I haven't driven a Freightliner in 20 years. Almost all of my Freightliner driving was from when I was with Swift and Conway Western Express 20 years ago. And I loved Freightliner. Freightliner was amazing. But I also loved my Volvo back then. Just not going to dim the lights, huh? Yeah, that's awesome. I just cannot. Oh my goodness, man. If you can't see at night, then you probably shouldn't have a driver's license. And there's a lot of people that just drive with their high beams on all the time because they can't see at night. All right. Yay, we've got somebody that's not high beaming me. This is awesome. So yeah, if I would have driven a modern Freightliner, I think Freightliner would probably be my number one. Like, if I were to buy a truck today and it was going to be a brand new truck, my choice would be Freightliner. So I don't know. It's I don't know anything about modern Freightliners because I haven't driven a Freightliner in 20 years, but I'm leaning toward Freightliner number one. Well, we'll just say right now, Volvo and Freightliner are tied for number one. What would number two be? So Volvo and Freightliner number one. And let me think here. What else we got? All the rest of them are really crap. So we got Kenworth, International, Sterling. Kenworth, International, and Sterling. What order would I put those in? I would put Kenworth at the top, Sterling number two, and then International at the bottom. So it'd be Volvo and Freightliner tied for number one, and then Kenworth, and then Sterling, and then International at the very bottom. I like Volvo and Freightliner. All the other ones are absolute garbage. So like Kenworth, all right, 50 mile per hour turn coming up. So, ooh, we just lost our shoulder. And it looks like we're driving through a falling rock area. And oh my goodness, did you see? I don't know if you can see that in the video. but there were some tire marks of you could see people slamming on their brakes coming up to that turn. Like, they came up on that turn, and at the last second, they're like, oh, crap, that's a sharp turn. And then they slammed on their brakes. So, yeah, we're going through some falling rock area and some windy road here. And I still am smelling rain. That usually means there's water. And it's not raining, so where in the hell is the water coming from? Do I have a water leak inside the truck? Do I have like a water bottle that fell over and is pouring all over the place? I triple checked that everything was stowed away properly, so I'm pretty sure there's not something that fell over. What in the hell does that sign say? Chain requirements when flashing. Vehicles over 10,000 gross vehicular weight carry chains. Chain up parking. Usually whenever you see all these chain areas like this, chain up areas usually means you're about to go up in elevation. You're about to start climbing some mountains. And chain off areas usually mean that you have gotten to the other side of the mountain. You've gone down the mountain. So we're probably about to do some climbing. And I have 28 miles, somewhere around 30 miles until I get to Interstate 84, until I get finished with this bidirectional. We got about 30 miles of this bidirectional left. Rough road. Next 4 miles. Keep right except to pass. All right, looks like I got a climbing lane. We got some oncoming traffic. Please don't bright light me. There, they just dimmed their lights. Yay. I don't even remember why we were talking about the various trucks I've driven. A lot of truck traffic on this road. All right, we got another 50 mile per hour turn, and I'm going 50 mile per hour right now. I could go faster. I'm not limited. We're going up a fairly steep grade. I could go faster because I'm empty. I'm just going slow because we're going through so many turns, and we are going up a really steep grade. Slowed down to 48 around that turn. So in my last video, I was trip planning this load, and so I'm pretty good to go on the fuel route, but I do drive shifts, one drive shift at a time. And this drive shift, my initial plan was to stop in a rest area just past Boise. There's a rest area just past Boise, and that's where I was going to stop at the end of this drive shift. But I think I'm going to change that. And the reason that I think I'm going to change that is because I was not able to flip my sleep schedule. I hopped in bed at like 7 p.m. to try to get some sleep, and I just could not go to sleep. I woke up at about 10 a.m. this morning. That's when I booked this load, was about 10 a.m. So I hopped out of bed to book the load. And I was not able to go back to sleep to get a nap in before I started. I had my alarm set to wake up at 1 a.m. And I wasn't able to fall asleep. I laid in bed from 7 p.m. until 1. And I basically just laid there trying to sleep with my eyes closed. And then I would wake up and play on my phone for 30 minutes to an hour or so. Then I would lay there with my eyes closed again. So that's what I did from 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. I didn't actually sleep at all. Right lane ends. So I'm not tired right now, but I think I'm going to get really tired. That say elevation was 3,107 feet. I think that's what it said. So that was the peak. Usually when you see an elevation sign, that's the peak. All right, come on, dim the lights. Dim the lights. There they go. Dim them, finally. And when you're driving with your brights on, you should be ready to turn them off like really quick. Unless you're driving like out in the middle of nowhere. You're by yourself. And even on this country bumpkin road right here, there's a lot of traffic. Like, you're not driving with your brights on. You're not, driving without seeing another vehicle for more than a couple of minutes at a time. So if you have your brights on, you should be ready to turn them off at a moment's notice on a road like this. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do is I'm going to probably end up stopping at the end of this drive shift at the Stanfield rest area, which is a place where I stop all the time. Stanfield, Oregon is really close to the Interstate 84-82 junction in north central Oregon. And I stop at the Stanfield rest areas in the east and westbound direction all the time. I think the last load that I took out of this area was the hazardous waste load that I took from Anacortes, north of Seattle. I took it to Williston, North Dakota. And I think after I picked that load up, where I ended up stopping after I picked the load up was the Stanfield rest area, eastbound. And I think that's where I'm going to stop after I pick this load up. It's not very far from where I picked this load up in the Dalles. It's Man, I don't know. I'm guessing it's probably only like 100 miles. But by the time I get this load picked up at approximately 6 a.m., if I woke up at 10 a.m., I haven't been asleep since then. So from 10 a.m. to 6 a.m., that's going to be 20 hours, right? So by the time I pick this load up, I'm going to be awake for like 20 hours. So just driving another 100 miles, approximately an hour and a half, that's going to put me at like 21 and a half hours awake. I have an extra day and a half on this load, so I'm not in a rush. So if I stop at, in Stanfield, then that's going to keep me from driving fatigued. I could just push and I could drive all the way to Boise and stop at my normal stopping area, but I'm going to be so tired. I'm going to be so fatigued, it'll be dangerous. And I am not on a tight schedule. There's no reason for me to push that hard. I did not see a sign about a recommended speed for this turn, but this is a pretty sharp turn. I see lots of tire marks. I don't know, did you see those tire marks right there? Somebody went all the way across the road. Looks like they lost control of the truck and it jerked hard to the left, and they went off-road off to the left side. But that was a pretty sharp turn there. I slowed way down for it. It's one of the reasons I don't like driving on state roads and highways. They don't have the same... They're not held to the same standards as the interstates as far as how sharp the turns can be and the signage required and all that stuff. Looks like another fairly sharp turn. Lots of tire marks. Like every time we're getting around one of these turns, like somebody slammed on their brakes and skid for like 100, 150 feet. You can see tire marks for like 150 feet of somebody's truck lane and 1,000 feet. So we're about to climb up a hill. We've been going downhill. Now we're going to do some uphill. So yeah, two positives of stopping in Stanfield, Oregon. One is it's going to keep me from driving fatigued, so big plus on the safety. And two, it's going to flip me over to a nighttime schedule. I should be able to get to Stanfield by like 8 or 9 a.m. And all right, right lane's about to end, so that's the end of this hill. We're doing 53 right now. I could go faster. I'm not limited by going uphill. I'm just going this speed because of the twisty turns. So yeah, if I get there by, let's say I shut down at 8 a.m., I can start driving in at 6 p.m., and that'll move me to a 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Just driving. That's like perfect nighttime driving schedule. That's amazing. I don't really care about being on a nighttime driving schedule when I'm driving over here in these low population areas, like driving I-80 across, Idaho, or, well, it's not 80 across Idaho, but driving 84 across Oregon and Idaho, and then 80 through Utah and Wyoming. I'm not worried about being on a nighttime driving schedule, driving through those areas, because I'm not driving through any major metropolitan areas. Boise isn't that bad to drive through during the day. Whenever you're taking 84 across Salt Lake, you're not really driving through Salt Lake, you're driving around it, so traffic's not that bad. So I don't really care about daytime, nighttime driving through all these areas. But once I get further east, I start getting into more major metropolitan areas I'm going to be driving through, then I'm going to be wanting to be on a, man, there are tons and tons of tire marks every time we come up to one of these turns. There's people just locking up their brakes. I don't know if you can see all those tire marks in the video. I see somebody's headlights reflecting off the guardrails, so I know there's somebody around this turn. We've got 14 miles of this bidirectional crap left. There's a lot more traffic on this road than I expected at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. It's 3:45 a.m. I am way ahead of schedule. My expectation was that I was going to arrive at the truck stop to get fuel at somewhere around 4:45 a.m. And I am 17 miles away from the truck stop. So I'm going to be getting there right at 4 a.m. So I'm like 45 minutes ahead of schedule. That means that after I get fuel, it means I'm going to basically arrive. My plan was to arrive at about 5 a.m. And I'm probably going to be arriving closer to like 4:30 to 4:45 a.m. And I don't know anything about this facility, and Google hides these facilities on Google Maps. So all of these Google terminals that I go to pick up these, to pick up and deliver these Google loads, not all of them, but a lot of them, they have no listings on Google Maps. So you can't go and look at reviews or anything on them. There's no business listed at, the address doesn't show up on Google Maps. It just gives you, if you plug in the address, it'll give you, all right, we got a way station in 1 mile. And about 100% chance it is not open. So if you put in the address on Google Maps, it'll like put a marker where the address is at, but it doesn't show a business name there. Way station open when flashing. Trucks over 16,000 gross vehicular weight stop at scales. It is not flashing. So not open. Golden Dale next two intersections. So it looks like we're about to drive through a town. So I'm looking out for speed limit signs for speed limits dropping. City center next right. I'm doing 54 right now. Speed limit's 60. And I've caught up with a truck. I got a truck in front of me. And we've still got approximately 14 miles of this bidirectional left. I've been going pretty slow. I haven't been going the speed limit. I've been doing a lot of like 52, 53 miles per hour. And I still managed to catch up with somebody. And that tells me that the person in front of me is most likely heavy. So they've probably been going like 30 miles an hour up the steep grades. And that's the reason I've caught up with them. I'm still doing 54 right now. Yeah, I'm just now starting to get tired. So yeah, I think I'm pretty sure I'm going to shut down at the rest area in Stanfield. I just yawned. But I don't know anything about this Google location because it's not listed on Google Maps. It doesn't have any reviews. There's no business to put reviews against. And so I have no idea what the hours of operation of this place are, or anything like that. I don't know. Maybe they open up at 6 a.m. Maybe they're 24 hours. Maybe I could have gotten here at midnight and picked this load up. I have no idea. You know what's really weird is it looks like the sun is rising in my rear view mirror, but I thought I was going south. Maybe I'm pointed west right now because it looks like the sun is rising behind me. So it looks like there's two trucks in front of me. One truck tailgating another truck. See, I caught up with a slower vehicle, and I've been going slow so that I don't get right up on the back of them. I'm trying to maintain some good distance because I know I'm not going to pass them on this bidirectional road. But the truck in front of me didn't do that. They're just tailgating the hell out of the truck in front of them. Got about 10 miles to go until we get to the truck stop. Throw in 50 gallons of fuel. And then I think I've got like 20 miles 20 or 30 miles until I get to the Google site. Yeah, we're at 2 hours right now on this video. I think I'll stop the video whenever I get to the fuel stop. Whenever I get to the truck stop, the Pilot Flying J. And this is a fairly new site, a fairly new Google warehouse. All right, I think we're starting to go up a little bit of a hill, and they just dropped a lot of speed in front of me, so I'm having to drop a lot of speed to maintain my distance. The truck in front of me, what's going on here? Chain up area. It looks like the heavy truck that's slowing everybody down. I don't know if they're actually pulling over to stop in the chain up area, or if they're just pulling over into the chain up area to let people pass. I have to be really, really careful here. They are driving through the chain up area. I think they just pulled over there to let people go right. Yeah, they did. They're pulling back onto the road. So that's the reason the truck in front of me, I caught up with them, is because of that. I think that was somebody hauling double tankers that I just passed that pulled over into the chain up area to let people pass. So that means this truck in front of me is probably going to start hauling butt. All right, what does this sign say? 4 miles of 5% grade. We're going downhill for 4 miles, 5% grade. We're doing 53 right now. Engine brakes on level 2. Let's go ahead and turn engine brakes up to level 3, because this guy in front of me is actually going quite slow down the hill. And I'm catching up with him a little bit. So now we're down to 50, 47, 45. Turning the engine brakes to level 2. Still slowing down to 44, 43. But we're maintaining distance on this truck in front of me. 42. It's not a bad speed. Now, with a 5% grade, yeah, I could easily go down this at 50 miles per hour and feel safe. But it's really twisty. Like, these are some sharp turns. So 43 miles an hour right now, and that feels like a good speed going through these switchbacks. And it's recommended speed around this turn of 45 miles per hour. So we're doing a good speed down this hill. Lots of tire marks. Every turn has tire marks of people slamming on their brakes because they were going too fast for the turn. Scenic overlook in a quarter mile. No trucks. Yeah, just... Oh, now you dim your lights. Like, what the hell? I smell like something burning. This truck in front of me was using their brakes quite a bit. Maybe it's their brakes that I'm smelling. All right, now it looks like the sunrise is to my left. So now maybe we're headed south. Five miles until we get to the truck stop. Is that the truck stop? I think that's the truck stop I can see over to the left. I don't think you can see that in the video. I don't think the video can see that far left, but there for a second I could see what looked like there's 3 truck stops all next to each other, and I think I could see them.
In a quarter mile, turn left to stay on US 97 South.
All right, looks like we're going to need to make a left where that truck just made a left.
Turn left to stay on US 97 South, then turn left to stay on US 97 South.
Uh-oh, what's going on? That truck in front of me, it looks like they're pulling over to the shoulder. Oh no, they're making another left. There's a stop sign up here, and we have to make another left-hand turn.
Turn left to stay on US 97 South. Continue on US 97 South for half a mile.
Alrighty. We're getting there. We're getting close.
In a quarter mile, turn right to stay on US
Oh my
97
goodness, I have to
South.
make another turn. These are some switchbacks right here. What is this little truck parking area they got going on here?
Take the next right to stay on US 97 South.
Whole bunch of trucks parked here.
Continue on US 97 South for 3 miles.
40-mile-per-hour turn. We're doing 17, so we're good. All right, there's somebody behind us. I can see the interstate from here, but we got some downhill to go. And there's a four-wheeler behind me. We're doing 33. We're going down a pretty steep grade, and we got some sharp turns. And those are the truck stops that I could see back there. We're eventually going to get there. There's no passing, but that four-wheeler's going for it. We're in a double yellow, and that four-wheeler's going for it. I'm doing 32 miles an hour. Ooh, there is a dead deer in the road right there. We're doing 36. It's a pretty steep grade. We're going down a really steep grade, and I don't want to get my speed up too high because here's another sign for 40-mile-per-hour turns. All these turns that we're going through are 40-mile-per-hour turns, so I'm trying to keep my speed down around 40 for all these turns, and we're going down a really steep grade. I would guess this is probably a 6% grade. Here's a 40-mile-per-hour turn. Really narrow, and I've got a truck coming at me from the other direction. So we're going to pass each other. We basically do not have a shoulder. Another 40-mile-per-hour turn. We're almost done with this. The truck stops are just like right there. I can see them. But we're driving these switchbacks back and forth. All right, looks like we're going over this body of water. I don't know if this is a river or a sea or a lake. I don't know what this is, but we're going over whatever it is.
Welcome to Oregon.
Welcome to Oregon. We just crossed over from Washington into Oregon. Speed limit's dropping down to 35. We're doing 36 right now.
In a quarter
Green
mile,
light.
turn right onto Biggs Rufus Highway.
Green light, green light. All right, we're going to be making a right turn in a quarter of a mile. So once I get past this light and this light, you don't want to be making lane changes through intersections if you can avoid it. So, all right, and that pilot over on our right side is where we're going to get fuel.
At the light, turn right onto Biggs Rufus Highway.
And
1,000 feet, turn right.
are those designated parking areas? It looks like that might be like a legit, looks like those might be legit parking spots, all those shoulder parking spots that all those trucks are parked in.
Take the next right, then your destination will be on the right.
All right, here we go into the truck stop. I'm not going to put in any def. I'm almost completely full on def. I have like 7/8 of a tank on def, so I'm just going to put in 50 gallons of fuel. What time is it? Let's see here. Let's click on next stop on the GPS. It is 4:08 a.m. So I'm only about 30 minutes early. 4:08 a.m. and I've got 22 miles to go. So hopefully they don't open at 6 a.m. Hopefully they're open right now, and I'm not going to be getting there too terribly early. But I'm going to go ahead and end the video now. Let me switch over to on-duty fueling. I'll upload this video here in a second while I'm fueling, or once I get finished fueling. So hope you're having a great weekend, and I'm about to go pick up the load, and then I'm probably just going to drive it like 100 miles to the Stanfield rest area, and that's where I'm going to stop and take a 10-hour break because I think I'm going to be really tired by the time I get there. So have a good one. Bye.